Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think. Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings, cretins.
Johnny Palmer.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling better. My head seemed to drain overnight, and at one point, my wife got disgusted and left the room. So I think she slept on the couch the rest of the night. So yeah, it was. My head was clearing, and today I went and fenced, and it seemed to be okay. So
yeah.
Hopefully, I won't lose my voice during the podcast.
Yeah. So you're swinging your sword around, and it felt good.
Yeah. All
right.
Trying to serenade her a little bit.
Serenade her a little bit. Oh, you're talking about your wife?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That sword. Fencing, right. I said fencing, didn't I? Yeah. Guess my head's still stuffed up.
What do you do? Do you do foil, rapier, epee?
Epee, yeah.
Epee? I enjoy the epee. Mm-hmm. It's where the full body is all valid target.
Yeah.
From the toe to the tip of the nose. All valid.
Yeah. I take my kids with me, and we all four of us have a group lesson. Mm-hmm. And then when we're done with the drills, the instructor has us all fence each other in bouts, and mm-hmm. I got a really good hit on my daughter. Just hit her right in the
pierced her right through.
Yeah, it went right up her forearm into her elbow, and she's going ow. And it's like
you're laughing. Tell her to suck it up.
Yeah, I told her, hey, that'll leave a scar, hon. That'll be really cool at school. Of course, if you tell everybody your dad did it, that won't sound so good.
Yeah, it'll be like, why did it hit me with a sword? Now, have you tried saber? Saber was always my favorite.
I'd love to.
That's quite a thing. The saber. It's much more dramatic than all the rest. I mean, it's real slashing.
Pirates stuff.
Yeah. Saber's a lot of fun. Hurts more than epee. It's fun. Yeah. Yep. All right. So we're doing this competition with our great sponsor, Blickman Engineering. Blickman Engineering is going to, for everybody who purchases a top-tier system during some months, you have to go to the Blickman Engineering website, Blickman Engineering, Blickman with two N's, .com. There's all the information on the contest, but if you purchase a system between now and I think it's
January,
end of January, Blickman and Palmer and myself will all come out to your location and we'll brew with you. Well, we're throwing in an extra possibility here. If you'd prefer, you can opt to come out to my place, and you can come out, and Blickman and Palmer and I will all be there, and you'll brew with me on my top tier system, and we'll make a good weekend of it, and then you can even come down to the studio with us and join in on doing some Brew Strong shows. We'll do them here in the studio. You'll be with us with Palmer and myself. And Blickman will all be in the studio, and you get to see the rat pad and how everything happens here. You get to check that out. So if that's more attractive to you, that's the option you can choose.
Weather-wise, that might be an attractive option to a lot of people in the north.
Right, yeah.
Because even in January, February, March, it's cool there. It's like in the 50s or 40, maybe 40s and 50s, Jamil. but not below freezing.
Oh, my place?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It'll probably be 70 and sunny.
See, there you
go. It'll be fine. But I don't mind going to the cold weather places. I'll go to Minnesota or wherever. Whatever time of year. That wouldn't stop me.
That's right.
So,
you can do that.
If you're thinking about getting a top tier system, go ahead and pull the trigger on that thing, and you'll be entered in on this contest. And I think the odds are going to be pretty good. They sell a lot of those systems, but you get much better odds than you would with like the lottery or something, and you'll have a great time. So if you can, check that out. Got another announcement for you. I got the iPhone app. I've been working with this guy Noah. He's been doing the programming on the iPhone for me, and he's taken the yeast pitching rate calculator and turned that into an iPhone app. It's got all the same formulas, produces exactly the same data as the free one online. If you want to just keep using the free one online, that's cool. But if you want to help support the yeast pitching rate calculator and send a few bucks our way, then you got an iPhone, go to the Apple Store. You can search for Mr. Malty or my name, Jamil Zanishev, and the yeast app should come up. And it's $4.99. I know a lot of people go, well, why isn't it free? It's like, well, because somebody else had to do all the programming and all the support and all that. And, it's a chance for me to make a couple of bucks. So if you don't want to,
put a lot of good work into that.
Yeah, if you don't want to support it that way, that's fine. There's no requirement to buy it. All the shows are still free. Contribute some other way. $2 recurring donation to the Brewing Network, or buy a bunch of books to give away to your friends, or something like that. All helps out, and we appreciate it. So if you can do that, that'd be great. Go pick yourself up iPhone version, and we'll do an Android version. I got that. That is kind of in alpha state right now. Just need to plug the formulas in and kind of test the whole thing, and then the Windows version is done. I just have to package it up and for sale. I've been remiss. It's been done since February, and I still haven't put it online. Anyways, such is the world of the beer geek. It's just way too busy. Way too busy. Yeah. All right. And today, we're talking about session beers, or low-gravity brewing. When we did the show on high-gravity brewing, a lot of people really enjoyed that, and I actually got a couple of people respond and said, I enjoyed that, but one thing I'm interested in is low-gravity brewing, session beer brewing. How do I go about that? How do I make a really great, flavorful beer with very little alcohol in it? And, or how do I make take a bigger, beer recipe and kind of dial it down to something, with all the same characteristics except, lower alcohol. So that's what we're doing. And as a matter of fact, here in the studio, Palmer, unfortunately, today is not in the studio because he's sick and he's, he had a garage door problem and things like that. And so he's not getting a chance to taste this. But JP's here. He's getting a chance to taste this. And Justin's here. He hasn't tasted it yet, but there it is right there in front of you.
I didn't even know it was in front of me.
What kind of beer is it?
It's kind of like an English brown, kind of old ale kind of character.
Okay. Kind of like an oxidized mild, or not?
That could be inferred by your description, Jamil. But no, it doesn't taste like that.
It's kind of old ale-ish, kind of like Old Peculiar, except without the funk. And that or a kind of a bold English brown ale. Mm-hmm. I don't know. This is a fairly low alcohol beer. This is going to be just under 4%, around 4%. More than enough alcohol in there and character to it. Doesn't taste thin. Actually, the carbonation is pretty much non-existent now because when I filled the container to bring it here, I forgot to pressurize it. So.
Oops.
But still. Decent drinking beer. Nothing wrong with this.
I think it's a great beer. It's the malt, that old ale character you're talking about, that kind of raisiny,
real treacle
age. Yeah,
right.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that in a good barley wine too. Mm-hmm. And this one has it without the oxidation.
Right.
Like Palmer said, might be there. This has it without that, so I don't get any of the cardboard, but all of that treacle.
Right.
This is good.
Yeah, it's a real malt character. A lot of heavy malt character to it. And that's one of the key points of doing a good session beer is you're looking for building body. You're looking to build a complex flavor profile, and by doing that, when you have the lower alcohol, that's really what makes a beer. It's it doesn't take much alcohol to make beer taste like beer. It's all those other things that people when a beer's lacking body or lacking other flavors, then people think, this beer is insipid, or it's missing something. It's a low gravity beer. That's the problem. But it doesn't need to be that way. All right, so
hey Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Just before you get into the serious business of this show, now that you've mentioned that JP's here, the chat room made the note that it is an entire room of unemployed brewcasters today. There's not one person in here with a job.
That's right, because Palmer's down. He's at home. He's
Palmer too.
recovering.
That's right. I was just thinking the three in the room, but I forgot.
No. Well, he's not in the room.
Right.
Yeah. That's what.
I'm employed.
Palmer still has a job,
but he is employed.
Yes.
But the people in this room are completely unemployed.
We're totally shiftless. And check us out on the video. You get the video running?
I'm just about to get it going.
You can check out 3 unemployed, beer swilling, beer talking people that, really just generally
living the dream.
Living the dream, exactly. All right. Well, while you get that running, why don't we take a short break? And when we come back, we'll get into really what makes a great session beer, the flavor, the body, all that stuff. We'll be back right after this.
When you hear Blickman Engineering, think innovation, passion, quality, and customer service. Blickman gear is designed by brewers to give you a sense of pride in your equipment. At Blickman, they know what makes brewing a pain and build gear that makes it fun. Like the intuitive beer gun, a completely different approach to filling bottles. The Therminator Wort Chiller, a new take on a plate chiller that's sized for flow, performance, and the high groundwater temps homebrewers face every day. The Brewmometer, a brilliant weldless thermometer design with brewing parameters right on the dial. The Autosparge, ultimate simplicity for preventing an overflow or running your mash tun dry. And much more, like the modular top-tier brewing stand, conical fermenters, and their Boilermaker brew pots. With more cutting-edge equipment coming soon. Keep up with the latest from Blickman at blickmanengineering.com and stay on the cutting edge.
Whether I'm making me dry stout or rebuilding me kegs, I head to the heart of dear Dublin for me homebrewing supplies.
You head all the way back to Emerald Isle just for a wee batch of grain or a bit of keg tubing?
No, you moronic waste of liver. Dublin, California. I go to Hoptech.
For 30 years, Hoptech in Dublin, California has been supplying homebrewers with malt extract, fresh grains, hops, spices and sugars, hop oils and extracts, and much more. Hoptech is one of the first homebrew supply shops on the internet and is proud to offer award-winning beer kits, both online and in their store.
Mention the BN Army for a 10% discount off your order.
The store is open every day except Wednesday, or shop online at hoptech.com anytime. Hoptech is run by passionate, award-winning brewers who live, love, and travel for beer and bring their experience to the store for you.
If you don't want to visit Dublin, just call toll-free 800-DRY-HOPS or go to hoptech.com.
Visit Hoptech today in Dublin, California, and at hoptech.com.
Nico, listen, our lawyers said that we had to do this for 1 hour, and after this, we don't have to talk to each other for 3 more months to the next meeting.
Kids, come on, let's get out of here.
I'm supposed to have more lines. I'm the professional. Hey, it's Sully.
And I'm Nico.
And we opened the 21st Amendment 10 years ago at 563 2nd Street in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park, to make great beer and have a great time doing it.
That's right, because to us, the 21st Amendment is more than just the right to make beer. It's the right to experiment, to be innovative, and just do things differently. And so now, we're putting our craft beer in cans.
That's right, cans. You can find our world-famous Hell or High Watermelon Wheat Beer at Brew for Your Die IPA in the Northeast, Northwest, parts of the Midwest, and Alaska in cans and on draft. So next time you're at your local neighborhood pub or good beer store, be sure to ask for 21st Amendment in cans.
Because everyone likes it in the can.
Tasty crack cans.
Tasty crack can.
And now, Northern Brewer brings you another installment of The Time Brewers. Brewers.
When last we left our heroes, they found themselves in 19th century Burton-upon-Trent.
Ah, merry England!
Something is amiss, my friends. Be on guard.
These casks of white Zinfandel will stand the Queen's men in good stead in far Bangalore.
Oh, hell no! Blush wine out of Britain be worse than microwaving a kitten. Maharaja Dodgers drinking pink be vomiting predominant on the subcontinent.
Oh, dear, you can't drink blush with Vindaloo.
Oi, what should I do? Ship hogsheads of this high carbonate water?
No, sir. Please, wait. Just a moment.
Well, bless me. A parcel from the future. From one northern brewer.
Use this malice auteur, my good man.
EKG at a high rate per barrel make ladies wet like Colin Farrell. Now quit Burton ruining the Burton Union and get Burton Brewing.
Forgettest thou not the bog myrtle?
Northern Brewer is your one-stop homebrew supplier throughout the entire fermento chronosphere. The widest selection of quality malt, hops, yeast, $7.99 flat rate shipping, and keep that nasty-ass bog myrtle inside your sackcloth, Brother Abelard.
My stars, but this India Pale Ale is better than wine. Thanks, Time Brewers. Thanks, Northern Brewer.
Our work here is done, my friends. Now, to wherever we are next needed.
Tune in next time for the continuing adventures of the Time Brewers.
Hilo, what's it feel like?
Take awesome and multiply it by 2.
Yeah!
Spraying live beer radio all over your face.
Can't get any better than this, baby.
It's the Brewing Network.
Back to your hosts, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. Putting the testicles in technical. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're talking about session beers. So a session beer, let's go, go back to... John, why don't you define for us what a session beer is?
Well, session beers are the lower alcohol styles, typically anywhere from 3 to 4.5%. Mm-hmm. Some example styles are English mild, was it Scottish 60 and
70?
Yeah, 70.
Yeah. Ordinary bitter.
Yeah, ordinary bitter. And I was trying to think if there's some German styles that would be like
Berliner Weiss.
Yeah, Berliner Weiss is a good example. Yeah.
Yeah.
So even though it's a sour, it's a low alcohol, easy drinking session beer.
Mm-hmm. Well, and session meaning you can get together with your friends, you drink multiple pints throughout the evening, and you're not all trashed. I mean, catch a little bit of a buzz, but you're not abusing your liver so bad that you're going to be dead if you do this every night. Right. So, one of the great things about session beer, just because it's a lower gravity, lower alcohol, doesn't mean it's short on flavor or character. This beer we're drinking here has plenty of character, has plenty of flavor, and a decent amount of body as well. Mm-hmm. And
now, lawnmower beers kind of qualify as session beers, also, don't they?
Sure. Well, it depends on what some people think lawnmower beer. They think 6%, American lager, or 5.2. But if you dial it back down, one of the things McDowell does is he takes like he makes a low gravity pale ale by brewing like a regular strength pale ale, and then for golf he'll water it down with sterile deaerated water. And increase the he'll maybe add like 10 or 20% to drive the alcohol level down and the water level up, and then carbonate it up. It tastes delicious. I mean, I could drink that stuff nonstop. And you're going out playing golf. It's hot. You're sweating a bunch. You don't want some high alcohol beer. You don't want to get so drunk you fall out of the golf cart. So he does that. Turns out great.
Yeah, session beers are often very, flavorful, tasty. Excuse me, tasty beers, but they're as you say, they're a lower alcohol and one that doesn't fill you up.
So before the break, we were talking about kind of the key points to making a great session beer, and one is to build body, and others to build flavor. And people worry about the amount of alcohol, but it only takes about 2% alcohol for a beer to seem like a beer. When you get up to 4%, that's about the tops of your session beer range, 4.5. You have enough alcohol there that you even have alcohol character if you want. You can make it more alcohol esters and fusels even if you want at 4%. Not a problem at all. If you go to Utah and drink the draft beer at the places there, they can bottle any strength alcohol they want and sell it to the government and back to them. But their draft is limited to 4% ABV. They make all sorts of fantastic beers. There's no lack of alcohol in the beers. I mean, you can really enjoy the beers. You don't notice anything different. So the key, I think, is really developing the flavor. So one of the tricks that I use is if you want to make a lower alcohol beer, and let's say you're starting from scratch, one of the things you want to think about is perhaps adding a little more hop character. The examples that we gave don't have much hop character. But if you're trying to make something like a lower alcohol American Pale Ale, one of the things you want to do is increase the dry hop or late kettle additions, and that character adds flavor and makes the beer interesting. You don't want to go over the top on bitterness or hop character even to the point where the beer becomes harsh. But adding additional hop character really kind of helps convince the person that it's a big full flavored beer.
Right.
So, dry hopping is a great technique, and late whirlpool hops, things like that. Mm-hmm. One of the other things that will help develop great flavor is specialty malts. Now, in a bigger beer, you need to be careful that you don't overdo specialty malts to where they become cloying, the beer becomes too heavy. That same kind of factor helps you in working with a lower gravity beer. You can take a lower gravity beer and kind of bump up your specialty grains a little bit more than you would in a higher gravity beer. Still need to be careful you don't go over the top and just make it a weird beer. But going heavy on the specialty malts adds a lot more character and flavor, and things like crystal malts, all the crystallized, caramelized malts, those will add residual sweetness as well. And that residual sweetness helps the perception of having a bigger beer. It's a sweetness that doesn't ferment out very well. So it really adds more character as well.
Now, one thing I like to do is I like to add several small additions of several different specialty malts. Mm-hmm. Do you do that, Jamil, when you're trying to develop these session beers, or when you talk about specialty malts, are you adding just like 2 specialty malts to that beer?
I tend
as opposed to 5.
On the smaller beers, I think that's an excellent point, John. The specialty malts, you tend to add more of them in a smaller beer, and it tends to help with the complexity, filling it out. If you go with just one specialty malt, it tends to be a little more angular and a little more obvious that there's thin points in the beer flavor. So you don't want to overdo it, and you don't want to make it just a muddy mess by throwing in everything. But in my Scottish ale recipe, my Scottish shilling recipe, which is based off of something Ray Daniels came up with a long time ago, it has quite a few specialty malts in it. But when you drink it, you don't really think, oh, wow, this is overdone with specialty malts. You think, oh, this has a nice malt character, plus I get a nice caramel note, plus I get a nice, this note. Mm-hmm. So you go heavy on maybe some of your specialty malts, and then very subtle on a couple of others that kind of fill in the background.
Okay.
And those tend to be more of the biscuity or bready or those types of general flavors that kind of take the place of the missing base grain.
Okay. So what I'm hearing then is kick up the signature notes a little bit, and then add in some background malts like the aromatic or biscuit victory, and to provide a little bit more graininess than that what would be missing otherwise. And,
right.
Okay.
Well, and one thing
think about the style, of course. What's the signature note of the style. But
exactly. One of the things that I know McDowell does when he's doing a pale ale, a light pale ale, or something like that, he'll take like half his base grain and we'll swap out like Pilsner malt. So half will be Pilsner, some percentage will be Pilsner, and some percentage will be just regular pale malt. And that adds kind of a grainy background note that helps, again, kind of fill out the character of the beer. Okay. So, you can adjust the types of base grains you're using, or, try and replace some of that missing base grain character with, some specialty malts. Because that's really, one of the ways that you dial down a bigger recipe into a lower alcohol or a session beer is mainly just to reduce your base grain. You keep all your specialty malts the same. You might change them a little bit, but you're reducing down your base grain. Now, the fact that you've reduced down that base grain, you need to make up for the flavor that's missing. And that's where these additional specialty malt additions come in, or switching up the base grain from domestic 2-row to maybe domestic 2-row and domestic pale ale, or maybe domestic 2-row and a portion of a Pilsner malt or something like that, and helps kind of fill that in.
Sounds good.
Now, one of the other most important things in flavor development is going to be your yeast selection, your fermentation, your sanitation. One of the problems people have a lot of times is they make these beers and they ferment them out as if they're still, they make a 1040 beer, they ferment it out as if it's a 1070 beer.
Yeah.
And, the results are, seems kind of like, well, it's like a very thin version of, what I brewed before. Well, yeah, because you pretty much brewed the same thing just as a thinner version. So instead of doing that, you might try changing up your yeast. Instead of using... if you're using 007, you've been following the Can You Brew It shows, and you're using 007 to make something similar to a stone beer, and you want to make a lower alcohol version of that. Well, instead of using 007, you switch to maybe 002. It doesn't attenuate quite as much, but it's got a very similar flavor profile. And, that would be one change you make. Maybe you ferment at different temperatures. Maybe you adjust your pitching rate. Maybe you adjust the amount of oxygen that you're including. All those things, really determine, the kind of the final outcome of that beer and how it's going to taste overall. So, fermentation is very important in that. And so and yeast selection is important as well. Sanitation, of course, we're all aware of how important sanitation is. I think it's even more critical in these lower gravity beers because, there tends not to be a lot to mask the flavors of contamination, and there isn't a lot of alcohol to kind of suppress the activity of bacteria. There usually isn't enough, a lot of hot bitterness to help counter, bacteria as well. So, sanitation becomes, almost doubly important because of the fact you're working with a lower gravity beer. All right, and the other thing, the other key point, we were talking about building flavor, and the other key point being building body, and body giving you, a fuller impression of the beer. It seems like, everything's there versus, thin and insipid, right?
Right.
Couple of important things. One is, limit your simple sugars. If you have a recipe, one of the easiest ways to reduce down a bigger recipe to a smaller one is, eliminate simple sugars. If your recipe has, a couple of pounds or a kilo or something of simple sugar, you can eliminate that and go with a lower mash temperature and get a result that is nice and full of the base malt flavors, but still seems dry enough. That'd be one key thing. A lot of traditional British recipes for the bitters and things like that, a lot of those that are brewed today, they include simple sugars. And if that's what you're going for, great. I tend to eliminate that because I want a fuller malt flavor. So simple sugars, you want to watch for that. Mash temp. If you're taking a bigger beer that and you want to make a smaller version of it, and let's say your bigger beer was mashed at 152 and it was a 1080 beer or something like that, that's going to have a pretty thick and full mouthfeel to it. And one of the things you want to do is raise your mash temperature on the lower gravity version. You can go up to 160 Fahrenheit, and no problem. And the beer should turn out with a nice dextrinous feel to it.
Mm-hmm. Keep some of the heavier sugars, a little bit more mouthfeel, a little bit more body to it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good way to get that character.
Well, and you can also add some of the grains that tend to seem to add more body to a beer, such as oats or what else should you add, John, to your mash? That
well, you could add some carapils,
mm-hmm.
A little bit of dextrin type malt. The the oats. That's another good one. I like to add. When I do a session beer, I often like to add malted wheat
mm-hmm.
To the beer because it has a slightly different flavor than the barley, and again, as we were saying earlier, it helps to fill in some of the background notes that you're kind of wondering, experiencing. Another good one for adding body, some unmalted barley.
Mm-hmm.
Not roasted barley, but just unmalted barley, or flaked barley. Mm-hmm. That'll certainly add a lot of mouth character to it, mouthfeel.
You can add maltodextrin powder if you wanted.
Yeah, that's an easy way to get it.
There. Yeah. And similar to flavor, you need to worry about your fermentation temperatures, the yeast that you use, things like that. They all affect body as well.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the going from 007 to 002. Mm-hmm. Why don't you translate those quickly for anyone that doesn't recognize which yeast those are?
Well, 07 is like the dry English ale yeast, I think, from White Labs, and 02 is just the regular English ale yeast.
Okay.
And the flavor profiles are very similar. And especially in British beers, there's a lot of yeast that have a lower attenuation, and it's kind of nice because you can pick any of those, and they have different flavor profiles, but you can pick one that attenuates lower or accentuates the maltiness or something like that, and that really helps. This beer I'm doing here, it had I used the yeast from the Black Sheep Rig Welter show, and on Can You Brew It, and it's a great yeast. It really leaves a lot of body and flavor behind the beer. Same thing goes for specialty grains. Specialty grains will, like John was saying, carapils, things like that, will help build body as well. And sanitation, again, really important. The thinner beers tend to be ones. One of the signals when you're judging beer is you taste a beer that seems thin. You start to think, I wonder if this is over attenuated because of wild yeast or bacteria or something like that. It tends to work those longer chain sugars and tends to really thin out the beer. Eats away at the body of the beer, and that can be an issue. One of the things that I discovered early on was the importance of giving enough conditioning time. When I first made my very first 60 shilling beer, I kegged up, just did everything like normal, put it in the keg, and then after a week I tried it, and it came out really super thin, and these giant bubbles the size of grapes that it had no body, no head, And I taste it. I'm like, oh, this is horrible. This is what a waste. No wonder nobody brews this beer. This sucks. And for some reason, I left it there because it was kind of tucked away in the back of the fridge. And I'm like, yeah, well, whatever. And I just left it. About a year later, I came back. I'm like, what is this keg back in here? I'm like, I ran some beer out, and it was great. It was had a great tight little fine bubble and a creamy head, and had quite a bit more body to it. It's like the body had increased over time. And part of it is it's carbonation. And, you know, if you overcarbonate a beer, for one, it tends to go from creamy and rich to all of a sudden sharp and thinner. There's a point where carbonation, not having enough carbonation makes a beer seem thinner. Having too much carbonation makes a beer seem thinner. So it's kind of a middle range there. And one of the other factors, I think, is these fine little, especially if you use something like roast barley, it tends to fracture in the mill and produce kind of a dust. And those microfine particles and other things from the brewing process, that if they're suspended in the beer, they tend to act as nucleation sites for CO2. The CO2 comes out real quick and easy, and it makes just, you know, for the beer seem really thin and weak.
Right.
Letting all those settle out over time really helps the beer develop. It's a huge difference. And that beer went from something I was ready to pour out to I entered it and got gold, you know, no problem. And that taught me a lot about patience and trying to let your beers, you know, have a chance to condition properly. And I think that's an important thing for you know, session beers in general. You know, having that time for letting them settle really tends to improve them. All right, so one more thing I wanted to cover, which was dialing down a bigger beer into a smaller beer. That's one of the things people requested was, you know, what are the steps to do that, and what are some tips and tricks? So let's take a short break, and when we come back, we will get into converting a big recipe down into a session beer. Back after this.
Hi, I'm John from Grain and Grape in Melbourne, Australia. We've been supplying home brewers with equipment, ingredients and advice for over 20 years. We carry a great range of grain, hops, whey, liquid cultures and all the gear you need to make great beer, from the most basic setup to a fully automated home system. We're all keen brewers, so drop in on one of our twice-monthly all-grain brewing demos and have a chat with Chris, Dan, Paul, Nick or Sam. We'll talk about brewing and recipes and systems and techniques all day. If you're squeezed for time or just dabbling in all grain, try our range of artisan ale fresh work kits, brewed at Melbourne's very own Mountain Goat Brewery. We're very proud to be a major sponsor of the Australian National Homebrewing Conference. This year we've got Randy Mosher and Gordon Strong heading here for 3 big days in October. Mention the Brewing Network when you're ordering online or over the phone to receive freight free on your next order under 15 kilos. Check out our website grainandgrape.com.au for conditions, and we'll see you at the conference.
When I order a beer, I want my server to know more about it than I do. I want someone who enjoys good beer and loves helping others enjoy it too. I want someone who knows how to pour a perfect pint for every beer style. I want a Cicerone.
The Cicerone Certification Program is creating the type of people who help you enjoy great beer. Home brewers and craft beer lovers know beer is more flavorful and complex than ever, and it takes some serious knowledge to store and serve beer right. Cicerones know beer. There are 3 levels in the Cicerone program: Certified Beer Server, Certified Cicerone, and Master Cicerone. Cicerones are truly the sommeliers of beer. The best beer locations have a Certified Cicerone on staff. Relaxed and unpretentious. Cicerones are tested on storing and serving beer, beer styles, flavor and tasting, the brewing process and ingredients, and pairing food with beer. Learn more about your next beer guide at cicerone.org. Certified Cicerone, because it takes top talent to present a perfect pint.
Hi, this is Push from the Brewing Network, and I want to tell you about the Brewmaster's Warehouse and how you can get 10% off your next order. I'm a pretty techie guy, but I've never seen an online store like this. It's awesome. Go to brewmasterswarehouse.com and click on Brew Builder. You can whip up a custom recipe so easily even Sven could do it. Seriously, it's slick. You can share your recipe with your own logo and notes to the Brewmasters database if you want, and the best part, it keeps a running tally of the beer you're building while you're doing it. Then, bam, click Buy Recipe, and your cart is filled and ready to go with helpful suggestions in case you forgot something. This thing is amazing. Brewmasters Warehouse is run the way a homebrewer would do it, with great service, fast turnaround, and $6.99 flat rate shipping. Brewmasters Warehouse and the Brew Builder blew me away. Check it out today at brewmasterswarehouse.com. I'm serious. And don't forget to put BNARMY in the discount code box for 10% off your order. Check out brewmasterswarehouse.com. Cheers.
Do you support the Brewing Network? Do you brew your own? Are you looking for an economical, fun, and legal way to do both? Subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine and do just that. All year long, Brew Your Own will surprise you, entertain you, and educate you with articles on beer and brewing from authors like the Brewing Network's very own Jamil and John Palmer. Each issue is a full pint of brewing techniques, homebrew stories, tips and photos, projects to make yourself, and recipes for the avid home brewer. Get your tough questions answered by Mr. Wizard, and polish your style accuracy with Jamil. A portion of every subscription goes to the Brewing Network, so subscribe today at byo.com/Brewing Network, or just click the BYO logo on the Brewing Network homepage and support a fantastic hobby and your favorite broadcaster. Brew Your Own, the how-to homebrew beer magazine.
My name is Olin Schultz, and I'm president of More Beer.
This month, More Beer wants you to meet the man behind the brand.
I founded More Beer 15 years ago.
Olin started brewing before the release of both Windows 3.1 and Bill Clinton.
I've been homebrewing for 18 years.
What makes starting the biggest brand in homebrewing great?
My favorite thing about working at More Beer is the great energy of the staff. Everyone loves to talk about beer.
Olin has put some of his favorite items on sale this month, just for you.
My favorite things to brew with right now at More Beer are the new breathable silicone carboy hood.
An easy way to seal your carboy without a lot of head pressure on your yeast.
My malty brown ale kit, our stainless steel quick disconnects, our line of heavy-duty kettles, and, of course, the B3 brew sculpture.
The best gravity-fed brew sculpture with a footprint of just 2 by 3 feet. It can fit almost anywhere. Don't miss Olin's favorites this month only, and only at More Beer.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew strong.
All right, we're talking about making session beers and, how you make a beer with lower alcohol that still has a lot of flavor and body and is a great beer to drink. And before the break, we were talking about, how would you take a bigger beer recipe and make that into a smaller beer? That's one of the things that McDowell did with, he took his Pliny the Elder clone and kind of dialed that down into Pliny Light, which was, lower alcohol. First, he started by just adding water and checking that out, and then he decided that what he would do is, same hop profile, but he would, forego the simpler sugar, and he would split the base malt, I believe, between, he'd add, about 30-40% Pilsner malt in place of the 2-row. And that added a nice grainy background that helps fill out the malt flavor. And even though it's a lower alcohol beer, it still have all that hop character, and then that gives it a sense that it's not a thin, small beer.
Right. It's an excellent pale ale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely one of my favorites. So, when you're dialing down a bigger beer, you're just not lowering everything. It's not taking that recipe and just ratcheting it down in your Beersmith or whatever software you're using, and ratcheting it down to a smaller beer. It is, first off, you want to, if you're going to make an adjustment, a lot of times if there's simple sugar in there, again, you remove that. If there is otherwise, you're dialing down your base malt, right? So if you've got 10 pounds of 2-row, then maybe you're taking that down and you leave all your specialty malts the same. Again, the trick that McDowell uses, maybe swap out some of that base malt with a more flavorful, more characterful, base malt. One of the things you can do, the specialty malts, Munich is a great addition. A little bit of Munich or Vienna, those add kind of a full malt character. A British pale ale malt, that's a good one to emphasize as well. If you're already with a recipe that's all British pale ale malt or all or mainly Munich or something like that, and you're trying to dial that down, that gets a little trickier. You're going to have to replace that missing malt character with some specialty malts. Maybe you're going to use some melanoidin malt. If you're mainly Munich and you're dialing down the Munich, trying to make a small Doppelbock or something. I don't know why you would, but you're going to have to add some.
Scale it down, diversify it a little bit.
Right. Some character. That's a good way.
Like
to put
as
it.
you're saying, the melanoidin, adding some, maybe a little more, some biscuit or some little grain edge to it, as well as the higher melanoidin character, and that'll keep the full spectrum of the Munich, but you can take it down without losing the full profile that you had before.
Well, and how about mash temperatures, John? What would you do on mash temperatures? What's a good rule of thumb for one recipe to another, going from a bigger down to a smaller?
Oh, well, I think the place to start is where you're saying that when you're brewing a large beer, you're brewing a 7% alcohol or 6% alcohol beer. You're brewing at a lower mash temperature to get the attenuation, to get the fermentability of that wort, so it's not cloying, so you can get the full expression of the flavors, all the different malts you have. When you want to scale this back from a 6% down to a 4%, then you should increase your mash temperature a few degrees. Say if you're going from 152, kick it up to 156, 158, and that will add some dextrins back. It will keep the final gravity of the beer, close. So, with the 6% beer, you're probably going from 1065 down to 1010. And if you're going to work that from like a 1045, you want that you're going to try to get that same 1010 finishing gravity.
Right.
But if you had scaled all the malts exactly the same, you would have a sweeter, heavier tasting beer, because it wouldn't ferment out the same way. So you want to mash at a little higher temperature and get that the fermentability up a little bit to retain some of the body and so on that you had before.
Right.
This same sensation of body, the perceived body, the perceived character.
Well, and that's your goal, is to really end up with the same character at the end, minus some of the alcohol. And, getting the same finishing gravity, getting the same, ester profile, getting the same malt background, all of that really plays towards, developing that impression that it's the same beer at the end. And it can be done, and it turns out great. And you can make a beer that you can have on. Somebody wanted to know what's the session beer that I have on at all times. Well, it changes. Sometimes I'll brew a mild or an ordinary bitter, or I do a small brown ale that turns out really well, or maybe something light and hoppy that has a kind of a like a small American pale ale. Those tend to be the ones that I do for session beers. How about you, John? What kind of session beers you do?
I like a light lager, and as we were talking about earlier, when I do a light lager, I kick up the flavor and aroma hops, the late hops. That way I've got, a 3.5% alcohol beer that has a lot of hop bouquet to it and a lot of, that gives me all the aroma as I, tip the glass back, put my nose over it. I'm getting like a big beer aroma out of that glass, but with a much lighter body and less filling beer. Yeah, I guess pale ales. I will also do lighter versions, but I guess the lawnmower or the pale or light lagers, my typical session beer.
Yep, that's a good one as well. And again, we were talking earlier about adding a little more hop character. Really helps enhance kind of the perception, the beeriness of a beer. Yeah. So it's a good tip as well. Well, let's take our final break, and then we'll wrap up, see if we got any questions in the chat room, things like that. And that'll be it for this show. So back after a short one.
The cutting-edge equipment from Blickman Engineering is designed by brewers to make your brew day shorter, more enjoyable, and to give you a sense of pride in your equipment. At Blickman, they know what makes brewing a pain and build gear that makes it fun. Like the intuitive beer gun, a completely different approach to filling bottles. The Therminator Wort Chiller, a new take on a plate chiller that's sized for flow, performance, and the high groundwater temps homebrewers face every day. The Brewmometer, a brilliant weldless thermometer design with brewing parameters right on the dial. The Autosparge, ultimate simplicity for preventing an overflow or running your mash tun dry. And much more, like the modular top-tier brewing stand, conical fermenters, and their Boilermaker brew pots. With more cutting-edge equipment coming soon, keep up with the latest from Blickman at blickmanengineering.com and stay on the cutting edge.
Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Cut hours off your brewing sessions by using one of our 11 varieties of famous Williams malt extract. Our Williams Belgian Pale Extract is mashed with pure Belgian 2-row malt and a small percentage of Belgian wheat malt for an authentic Belgian character you just can't get from other extracts. Or check out our unique fermenters, 2.5-gallon kegs, paintball tank-based draft beer equipment, bottling aids, and much more. We even have our own line of precision hydrometers. Go to WilliamsBrewing.com to browse our vast selection. That's WilliamsBrewing.com. Orders placed by 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time ship the same day. Brewing is easy. The Williams way.
Hey, what are you doing, man?
Writing a review of WLP 400.
What? You're reviewing yeast?
Yeah. White Labs has home brewer reviews of all their strains. Are you new to these interwebs? Check it out.
That's awesome.
White Labs, your source for great yeast, invites all brewers to visit whitelabs.com to read and write your own reviews of all their yeast strains. Get real-world tips and tricks from other brewers who have made the most of their vials and post your own experiences. It's another way White Labs brings you closer to the best yeast on the planet.
And send. There you go.
You misspelled flocculate, dude.
What?
White Labs. It's all in the vial. Organic ingredients. Fresh, clean, good for you, good for the planet. Seven Bridges has the best selection of organic ingredients, including over 27 varieties of organic hops at breworganic.com. Join their mailing list for special deals and regular updates. They've been brewing organic and serving organic brewers for 13 years. They can help you brew great organic beer. And Seven Bridges is the proud host of the 4th Annual National Organic Brewing Challenge, the only BJCP-sanctioned nationwide brewing competition just for organic beers. Take the challenge this fall fall for a chance to win great prizes, including stainless steel brew kettles and organic brewing ingredients. This year, the challenge will be judged in 2 locations: on the East Coast at Capital City Brewing in Arlington, Virginia, and on the West Coast at Gordon Biersch in San Jose, California. For complete details, visit breworganic.com/competition. Seven Bridges is cooperatively owned in awesome Santa Cruz, California. Everyone there is dedicated to great beer and people-friendly business practices. They offer environmentally friendly, fair trade, and fair wage brewing products whenever possible. Seven Bridges, breworganic.com.
Downtown Joe's, located in the historic Oberon building in beautiful downtown Napa, California, offers an award-winning brew pub experience from 8:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day. For 15 years at the corner of 2nd and Main, Downtown Joe's has been voted Best Night Spot 7 times and Best Brew Pub for the last 4 years in a row. Brewmaster Colin Kaminsky's handcrafted ales, like his Tail Wagon Amber Ale and Double Secret Probation IPA, are the perfect accent to riverside dining, live music, and a relaxing outdoor patio. Don't miss the Beer of the Month, special rotating taps, and the BN Army Member Special. Wear your BN gear, get 10% off your beer. Visit downtownjoes.com to make reservations, peruse their extensive calendar of events, or just read more about their fantastic beers. Come enjoy the fine beer, food, and music. Downtown Joe's, the award-winning brew pub where you'll feel at home.
This is www.thebrewingnetwork.com.
Sit down next to it, grab yourself a paper towel, and watch those yeast have sex.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Back to the 2 guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. Wrapping up our Session Beers show.
I wish I was having some of your session beer right now. Sounds good.
Well, and the funny thing is that this is a beer for our next show, which is about making great kit beer. Or, how do you make great beer in less than an hour? And this is a beer I have about 45 minutes invested into. I actually boiled some water, got out the can opener, opened a can of pre-hopped malt extract, a Morgan's beer kit, poured it into the fermenter with the water, shook it up. I added a couple of bags of DME. I pitched my yeast. I controlled the fermentation temperature, and it turned out quite a decent beer. Everybody's consumed this. Everyone's like, "Yeah, this is good beer. I like this. This is good. I can drink it."
Yeah.
I even had Dave Sapsis come by my house the other day. He tried it. He's like, "Yeah, it's good beer. I like it. I can drink a lot of this." I'm like, "Do you notice anything wrong with it?" Nope. I don't think anybody really notices anything wrong with it. It's like, yeah, I asked people, do you think anything? Nobody says. Seems like an extract beer. No, it doesn't. It seems like a decent, well-made, all grain beer.
The first thing I commented on was the malt profile.
Right.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
So it's pretty impressive.
I'm just blown away at how well that turns out. So, it's just a great way to make a system. So if you want to learn how to do this and do it right and make quite a nice beer, 5 gallons of quite a nice beer in less than an hour, we'll be doing that on the next show. All right. During these shows, we do them live, and you have a chance to participate. There's a chat room where you can just go onto thebrewingnetwork.com. There's a chat now button. Jump in there. You don't need to password or anything. Just enter in whatever screen name you want, and you can join in, chat with the other folks in there that are listening, or ask questions. And the third show today, we're going to be doing a live Q&A. You can do that in the chat room as well, or even you can even call in at 888-401-BEER. We won't bother screening them during the live Q&A. We'll just go for it, huh?
We will.
Yeah.
Balls to the wall. All right. What's our first question?
Okay, Bike Foolery in the chat room wanted to know about using maltodextrin to boost body.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you mentioned it. He probably needs some clarification.
Okay. So there's a maltodextrin powder, which is essentially malt dextrins, the long-chain sugars that you get from mashing. And you can just get this powder, throw it in your boil kettle. Near the end of the boil is when I would use it. About 4 ounces by weight for a 5-gallon batch, wouldn't you say, John?
Yeah. 4 ounces is good.
Right. You don't want to go...
wouldn't go over a half pound anyway.
Right. You can add milk sugar as well, lactose, like they do in a milk stout. That tends to add a creaminess and a sweetness. That's actually slightly sweet. The maltodextrin powder is
almost tasteless.
Yeah, it really just adds a fullness. So it's real flavor neutral.
Okay. And the same person had another question that came through. He wanted to know about scaling down a beer like Jamil's Belgian Dark Strong to something like a 5 to 7% instead of a 10%. I guess he actually tried it, but ended up with a beer that was too thin and had zero head retention. So wanted to know what you thought about scaling something like that down.
All right. See, now you can certainly do this and have success. The things that you'd want to change, remove the simple sugar, and if that's not enough, start removing the base malt, and then even then, at 5 to 7%, you should have plenty of dextrins, residual sugars. There's so many specialty malts in that beer that you should be just fine. I would up the mash temperature a couple of degrees. So those are the changes I would make to get it down into that range. If it's turning out thin and watery, either your numbers are way off, or more likely it's a fermentation issue. It might be sanitation, it might be fermentation, and that's the thing to really focus on. Otherwise it shouldn't turn out too thin.
Okay. All right, Corosis, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but Corosis in the forum says, if I'm adding in Munich to make up for malt character in scaling back a big beer, do I want dark or light Munich?
Could be cirrhosis.
No, it's no I, it's C-O-R. That's what I thought, first thing I thought, but then, yeah, C-O-R-O-S-I-S.
So what was the question? I'm stuck on his name.
Well, I thought...
Use dark or light Munich.
Yeah, scaling back, use dark or adding Munich to help build malt.
Right.
Dark or light? Does it matter?
It depends on what kind of recipe it is. If it was like a pale ale or something like that has generally light malt character to it, I'd use the light Munich.
Okay.
But like John was saying earlier, sometimes it can be beneficial to split it up amongst things. If you're doing something more like a Doppelbock or something like that, or a malty lager or something along those lines, something that has a real bready character to it. Yeah, you might use some of the darker Munich as well, kind of split it up.
Okay. And his follow-up question to that was, if I can only get light Munich at my local homebrew shop, they said to toast it in the oven to get it darker. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Works fine?
Yeah, should work.
Any techniques, like amount of time, or you just got to watch it?
You got to watch it and taste it.
Okay.
Yeah, 325 for 20 minutes, and just use your nose, use your eyes.
Right. Okay. When you start noticing like a toasty aroma in the air, you got to be real on top of it.
Okay. It'll burn quick, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and you can spray it down a little bit, add a little moisture to it initially.
Okay.
That'll help.
All right.
Keep it from more, burning.
And then my stupid question, that's pre-crushed, right? You wouldn't toast it crushed.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
I guess you could do it toast it crushed, but I would think I don't know. I'd use a much shorter time, I think.
Yeah. Everything just seems so wide open.
Usually you do your toasting in before crushing.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that was just my question anyway. All right. Phil Brazil, our Brazilian listener, the one guy, mashing question, asking about your temperatures. Is going 156 to 158 okay? Is there no time frame for those temperatures? If I keep it there for 30 minutes or 100 minutes, would the results be the same?
Well, you tend to get more conversion the longer you go. As far as you can actually get a little more efficiency by longer. If you go too short, you tend to screw your efficiency for one, and conversion tends not to be so complete. But if you're, let's say you're going from 149 to 160, conversion is going to happen so much faster at 160. Or let's say you're doing the reverse. If you're going from a higher temperature down to a lower one, you should let the mash rest longer, just because it tends to take longer the colder it is.
Okay.
But 156, 158, it doesn't even matter.
Okay.
I mean, you can do that on any beer and probably not notice the difference unless you're doing side by side.
Okay.
Wouldn't you say, John?
Yeah. Just use your hour rule of thumb and no worries.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. And the last one was more of a comment I thought you might want to talk about, too. The Todd in the chat room said that some very low-gravity beers can be tricky with extract. He says, I did a mild with extract that fermented out to brown water. I switched it to all grain, and it took a silver medal.
See, and again, it depends on the extract. Now, if you have an extract that attenuates out like crazy, you're going to need to steep some specialty malts to add more body and all that. Ideally, you want to find an extract that won't attenuate out that much. But it is possible to make a lower gravity beer and have it turn out really well. The extract that they're producing a fine beer and then concentrating it down. That in and of itself should not make a bad beer. The problem is people start out with brewing with simple extracts, and they don't have a lot of experience on sanitation, fermentation, things like that. And that's where the problem tends to be. It's not with necessarily the extract. It's with the brewer. And when those brewers, they're passionate about it, they want to make great beer, they're thinking, everyone's telling them, well, you got to go all grain. So they go all grain, but at the same time, they're making starters, they're watching the sanitation better, they're getting better at everything. And all those other things lend to making a better beer. So I wouldn't say it's impossible. It can be tricky, of course, but we're drinking here, a fairly low gravity. It's a session beer. We all enjoyed it. We thought it was great. No problems. And that's from a can of pre-hopped extract that you just mix with water and ferment.
Yeah,
it turned out great. So I think it's possible. It just depends on all that other stuff.
Okay. And, we've talked about that on the show in terms of extract before, that a shop that goes through a bunch of it it's going to be fresher,
right?
At least, and then knowing who their supplier is. Do some research.
Well, and I've got a second kit extract beer for us to taste during the next show.
Okay.
To show kind of the difference between old extract and fresh extract. So
Great.
if we drank pretty much the entire bottle of fresh extract beer.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be looking for other beers when we crack open the bad extract beer. But even if you don't think you're interested in doing kit beers, listen to the next show anyways, and there will be stuff you can learn from this. There's stuff I learned. I was surprised. I knew that it would turn out okay. I was surprised at how well it turned out.
Okay,
it was really a very very dramatic difference.
All right, that's it from the chat.
Cool. Well, and I know a great place to get these kits nice and fresh. You get them at Grain and Grape in Melbourne. They got the big wall of fresh kits, and then they can take you from the kits to all grain and everything in between. So, one of our sponsors, good guys there. They've been doing the business for 20 years, and they are fun people. So, give them an email and tell them how much you appreciate them supporting the show as well as our good buddy John Blickman. He's gonna be at somebody's house brewing on the top tier. So get yourself a top tier system. If you're on the fence whether to buy one or not, now's the time to get it and get in on that special prize. It's going to be a real fun thing to do.
Yeah, put up with us for a whole day.
Exactly. Well, a couple of days. If you do it out here, you're going to come and sit with us in the studio and do a Brew Strong with us. So.
Nice.
That'd be cool.
That's going to be even more fun. And then you get to see like JP and Justin and Chad and everybody. Be a blast. So our next show up is brewing great beer in under an hour. And don't forget our sponsor Blickman. And also keep in mind these sage words of advice. Do it to me one more time. Once is never enough with a man like you. Brew Strong.
Brew Strong, everybody.